kamu bangga jika dapat melanjutkan pendidikan pasca sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis ilmu Al-Quran pertama di dunia, kampus Islam yang unggul dan modern dalam pengkajian keilmuan berbasis Al-Quran, memiliki visi menjadi pasca sarjana yang ikonik dalam kajian Al-Quran dan sains untuk Indonesia dan dunia, serta misi menyelenggarakan pendidikan tingkat pasca sarjana secara profesional yang efektif, efisien, dan relevan dengan nilai-nilai Al-Quran, teknologi, serta keindonesiaan. Meningkatkan reputasi bidang penelitian yang unggul dan orisinal berbasis Al-Quran dan integrasinya dengan sains. Menyelenggarakan pengabdian masyarakat serta menginternalisasikan nilai Al-Quran ke dalam dunia akademik dan kehidupan masyarakat, serta menjalin kerjasama akademik dan non-akademik di tingkat nasional, regional, dan internasional.
Kami ingin kajian-kajian Al-Quran merambah dan menjadi solusi terbaik bagi persoalan-persoalan yang dihadapi oleh umat manusia. Kalau boleh meminjam ungkapan istantikil Quran, buatlah Al-Quran itu berbicara untuk segala hal. Itu sebabnya kami tidak hanya mengkaji ulumul Quran dalam arti sempit, tetapi kami mencoba mendekatkan Al-Quran dengan semua ilmu pengetahuan yang ada.
Al-Quran adalah hudan dinas. Al-Quran membuka dirinya untuk menjadi bahan riset bagi umat manusia, bukan hanya untuk umat Islam. Oleh sebab itu, dosen dan mahasiswa di lingkungan pasca sarjana Universitas PTIQ Jakarta dalam risetnya mengintegrasikan antara ilmu nakliyah atau transcripted science, ilmu akliyah atau rational science, dan ilmu amaliyah atau practical science.
Belajar di pasca sarjana Universitas PTIQ Jakarta menjadikanmu ahli Al-Quran tanpa melupakan semua ilmu pengetahuan yang ada. Metode yang digunakan pun spesifik agar terkonsentrasi pada nilai-nilai Al-Quran.
Ada dua metode yang kami lakukan. Yang pertama, minan nas ilal waqi. Term-term Al-Quran digunakan untuk menyelesaikan problem manusia dan kemanusiaan. Dan yang kedua, minal waqi ilan nas. Persoalan-persoalan yang ada dalam masyarakat didekatkan kepada Al-Quran.
Materi kajian dalam riset dosen dan mahasiswa di pasca sarjana Universitas PTIQ Jakarta mengeksplor isyarat ilmu dan nilai-nilai Al-Quran yang dapat menjadi basic argumen dalam membangun konsep, teori, metode, atau kaidah-kaidah dalam kajian tafsir Al-Quran. Demikian juga dengan ilmu-ilmu lain terkait manajemen pendidikan Islam dan ekonomi syariah. Dengan ini, Al-Quran dapat dikatakan sebagai sholihun di kulli zaman wa makan.
Jelas Al-Quran itu adalah dogma, dia harus diyakini. Tetapi tidak cukup dengan itu. Studi Al-Quran saat ini juga harus bisa menstimulus perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan. Studi Al-Quran juga harus mampu memiliki manfaat bagi masyarakat.
Apakah kamu bangga jika kehidupanmu selalu dipenuhi dengan makna-makna yang terkandung dalam Al-Quran dan bermanfaat bagi masyarakat? Program Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIQ Jakarta telah menjadi kampus terbaik di Indonesia dalam mencetak ulama-ulama besar, hafiz, dan juga qori yang kini tersebar di lingkup nasional maupun internasional.
Sekarang ini kita dipercaya oleh pemerintah untuk mencetak pendidikan kader ulama dan pendidikan kader ulama perempuan. Kementerian Agama merekomendasikan agar Istiqlal bekerjasama dengan PTIQ mencetak sarjana-sarjana yang mumpuni. Kementerian Perempuan mempercayakan kepada PTIQ bekerjasama Istiqlal untuk mencetak sarjana-sarjana perempuan. Satu semester nanti itu akan kuliah di Mesir, satu semesternya mungkin kuliah juga nanti di Eropa atau di Amerika. Dengan demikian ulama yang kita akan cetak di PTIQ ini adalah ulama yang mengglobal, menguasai bahasa Inggris, menguasai bahasa Arab tentunya. Dengan demikian mampu mensuplai ulama yang dibutuhkan di sektor bumi.
Memang dari dulu kita tahu PTIQ dan lulusan-lulusannya. Karena biasanya kalau kita ceramah gitu, kalau kita ketemu di suatu tempat, pasti imamnya tuh alumni PTIQ. Dan kita kenal lah lulusan-lulusannya itu adalah mereka-mereka yang sudah melanglang buana kalau di urusan Quran, baik MTQ-nya, syarhil Qurannya, ya bahkan khotnya juga. Jadi kita sudah mengenal sebetulnya PTIQ sebelum saya masuk pasca di PT IKI.
Dengan berbagai program yang ada, Pasca Sarjana Universitas PT IKI Jakarta berkomitmen untuk menghasilkan lulusan yang berilmu amaliyah, beramal ilmiah, berakhlakul karimah, yang dapat diterima oleh masyarakat secara luas.
PT IKI dari dulu fokus tentang ilmu keal-Quranan, tentang segala macam yang mempelajari Al-Quran. Saya juga sangat menghargai dan salut kepada dosen-dosen yang memberikan perhatian kepada kami. Ada yang baru belajar Al-Quran, ada yang mungkin sudah cukup tinggi, dan itu kemudian dihubungkan oleh dosen kita dengan diskusi yang sangat menarik. Jadi secara intellectual exercise, menurut saya kuliah di PT IKI itu sangat menyenangkan, memuaskan. Dan ketika lulus, saya menemukan bahwa kembali belajar Al-Quran sekarang itu seru.
Kalau dari sudut pandang masyarakat, PT IKI itu sudah cukup terkenal ya. Omongan dari masyarakat mengenal alumni PT IKI itu sangat-sangat bermanfaat dari segi ilmu keagamaan, kemudian imam masjid, MTQ juga mereka yang mumpuni.
Satu kebahagiaan yang luar biasa. Saya menjadi bagian daripada perguruan tinggi ilmu Al-Quran, mulai dari S1 kemudian lanjut ke pasca sarjana PT IKI. Kalau ditanya alasannya kenapa mengambil pasca sarjana PT IKI, ya karena S1-nya di PT IKI. Kalau di PT IKI S1 saja sudah merasakan manfaat yang luar biasa, ilmu-ilmu yang diberikan dan juga kebersamaan, kekeluargaan Qurani yang kami rasakan, apalagi kalau kita sudah mencapai jenjang pasca sarjana. Dan juga yang kedua alasannya ketika melihat motivasi-motivasi daripada lulusan-lulusan daripada pasca sarjana PT IKI. Jadi Masya Allah Tabarakallah, alasan utama karena pengen dekat dengan Al-Quran. Begitu mungkin karena yang mendekat dengan Al-Quran yang kami rasakan yang ada di Indonesia, yang paling dekat ya di PT IKI ini.
Maksimalkan potensi dirimu di Pasca Sarjana Universitas PT IKI Jakarta melalui 3 pilihan di dalam program Magister, yaitu S2 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, S2 Ekonomi Syariah, S2 Manajemen Pendidikan Islam, dan 2 program studi pilihan di dalam program doktor, yaitu S3 Manajemen Pendidikan Islam dan S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir. Semua mahasiswa yang terdapat pada seluruh program studi mendapatkan sertifikat tahsin Al-Quran dari Lembaga Tahfiz dan Tilawah Al-Quran sebagai jaminan mutu kualitas lulusan Pasca Sarjana Universitas PT IKI Jakarta. Dalam menjalankan kelancaran pendidikan, Pasca Sarjana Institut PT IKI Jakarta dikepalai oleh Direktur Pasca Sarjana yang bertanggung jawab kepada Rektor Universitas PT IKI Jakarta, serta dibantu oleh 16 dosen Magister Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, 5 dosen Magister Ekonomi Syariah, 13 dosen Magister Manajemen Pendidikan Islam, 5 dosen Doktor Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, dan 5 dosen Doktor Manajemen Pendidikan Islam.
Di program Magister Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir itu ada 3 peminatan namanya. Ada ilmu Al-Quran, ada ilmu tafsir, dan satu adalah tafsir Nusantara. Nah, ini sesuatu yang menarik sesungguhnya ketika kita menawarkan tafsir Nusantara, walaupun seluruhnya bernuansa tafsir Nusantara, karena bagaimanapun kita hidup di Nusantara. Tetapi peminatan ini menjadi penting agar kajian Al-Quran di Indonesia itu tidak stagnan. Kenapa itu penting? Ya karena di sana kita akan melihat bagaimana dunia nasional dan juga internasional mengkaji Al-Quran. Bagaimana non-muslim dan muslim mengkaji Al-Quran. Di sana dielaborasi tentang hal itu bagi mereka yang memilih peminatan Al-Quran.
Program Magister Ekonomi Syariah Universitas PT IKI Jakarta memiliki visi dan misi menjadi program studi yang unggul dan kompetitif di bidang ekonomi berbasis Al-Quran, keindonesiaan, dan keislaman. Kami memiliki 3 peminatan, yaitu peminatan bisnis syariah, peminatan manajemen syariah, dan peminatan keuangan syariah. Dengan menjadi mahasiswa di program studi Magister Universitas PT IKI Jakarta, setelah lulus perkuliahan ini, Anda akan mendapatkan 2 gelar sekaligus. Yang pertama adalah Magister Ekonomi dari Universitas PT IKI Jakarta dan gelar profesi Certified Islamic Money Manager hasil kerjasama dengan IARFC Ohio USA, atau gelar RIFA Registered Islamic Financial Associate dari hasil kerjasama IARFC USA Juga ada beberapa gelar lainnya hasil kerjasama dari INSIF University Malaysia.
Universitas PTIG Jakarta, Magister Manajemennya memiliki peminatan 1. Manajemen Pendidikan Islam Anak Usia Dini. Yang kedua, Universitas PTIG Jakarta juga memiliki Magister Manajemen Pendidikan Dasar dan Menengah Islam. Kemudian kami juga memiliki peminatan namanya Manajemen Pendidikan Tinggi Islam. Yang keempat, ada juga namanya Manajemen Pendidikan Al-Quran. Sekarang kan sedang marak nih. Jadi ada, kalau dulu ada TPG, sekarang ada rumah-rumah tahfidz, pesantren-pesantren Quran. Apakah lembaga-lembaga ini sudah di-manage dengan manajemen modern? Mungkin sebagian sudah iya, tapi sebagian yang lain masih membutuhkan manajemen modern, dan itu perlu ilmunya.
Visi yang dimiliki oleh S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIG Jakarta adalah menjadi program studi yang unggul, ikonik, dan progresif yang mengintegrasikan antara ilmu-ilmu keislaman, saintek, dan juga keindonesiaan. Visi tersebut dilaksanakan dengan 4 misi sebagai berikut. Yang pertama, menjalankan pendidikan tinggi dengan mengintegrasikan antara keilmuan, saintek, dan juga nilai-nilai keindonesiaan yang berbasis Al-Quran sebagai pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, wa qur rabbi zidni ilma. Yang kedua, menyelenggarakan penelitian dan pengabdian masyarakat yang progresif sesuai dengan kebutuhan masyarakat baik nasional maupun global sebagai pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, wa qul i'malu fasayarallahu amalakum wa rasuluhu wal mu'minun. Yang ketiga, menyelenggarakan kerjasama baik pada tingkat nasional maupun internasional yang merupakan pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, wa ta'awanu 'alal birri wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu 'alal ismi wal 'udwan. Dan yang keempat adalah menyelenggarakan tata kelola yang baik, yang ramah mahasiswa dan bermutu tinggi sehingga menjadi salah satu ikon yang terdapat di S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIG Jakarta. Dengan pelaksanaan 4 misi tersebut, diharapkan S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIG Jakarta telah mencerminkan pengamalan dari kaidah al-muhafadzatu 'alal qadimi sholih wal akhdhu 'alal jadidil aslah, yaitu mengambil dan mengintegrasikan turos ataupun peninggalan dari ulama-ulama terdahulu dan menggabungkannya dengan yang terbaru pada saat ini.
Program Studi Doktor Manajemen Pendidikan Islam Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIG Jakarta adalah program studi yang paling baru yang berada di Pasca Sarjana. Program studi ini kemudian memiliki keunikan dan keunggulan, yaitu pada manajemen inovasi pendidikan Islam. Nah, program studi ini difokuskan pada prinsip-prinsip manajemen, yaitu perencanaan, pengarahan, pengelolaan, penyusunan persolia, sampai dengan pembiayaan, yang dihubungkan dengan seluruh aspek-aspek yang terkait dengan pendidikan seperti input, proses, dan output pendidikan. Profil lulusan yang akan dilahirkan dari program studi doktor manajemen pendidikan Islam itu adalah pertama akademisi, yang kedua akan melahirkan peneliti, yang ketiga akan melahirkan konsultan pendidikan, dan yang keempat itu akan melahirkan penyelia. Dengan demikian, program studi doktor manajemen pendidikan Islam akan menjadi rujukan program studi yang memfokuskan kajiannya pada inovasi-inovasi pendidikan, khususnya inovasi pendidikan Islam yang ada di Indonesia bahkan dunia.
Pimpinan lembaga dan para dosen mendorong seluruh mahasiswanya untuk mampu bersaing di lingkup nasional dan internasional dengan mengadakan kerjasama oleh banyak lembaga dan instansi di lingkup nasional dan internasional. Kerjasama ini dilakukan selain untuk menjaga kualitas Universitas PTIG Jakarta, juga meningkatkan posisi PTIG Jakarta di lingkup nasional maupun internasional sehingga mampu bersaing dengan berbagai universitas unggulan di dunia.
Program S2 dan S3 PTIG, kami bersyukur ya karena rupanya peminatnya jauh lebih besar. Dan apa yang ada di PTIG,
Maaf ya, pengantennya belum datang.
Para mahasiswa, pertama itu pemahaman teoritisnya sangat kuat tentang Al-Quran, karena memang diasuh oleh orang-orang yang capable, ya, orang-orang yang sudah lama bergelut sebagai ahli Al-Quran, kebutuhan akan Al-Quran bagi manusia sebenarnya sama dengan kebutuhan akan oksigen bagi badan kita. Namun terkadang manusia tidak memahaminya. Maka bagi komunitas umat Islam, kebutuhan akan Al-Quran bukanlah pilihan, tapi itu kepastian. Maka dari pemikiran itulah peluang bagi para sarjana atau alumni studi Al-Quran khusus di PTIG pasti akan terus terbuka lebar. Dan yang kita harus lakukan hanyalah melayakkan diri untuk dapat menangkap peluang.
Saya mengajak pada seluruh saudara-saudaraku sama umat muslim, kalau kita ingin memperdalam ilmu keagamaan pasti banyak pilihannya. Nah, kalau saya pemilih PTIG, kenapa? Karena saya melihat di dalamnya banyak para cendekiawan, guru-guru yang bisa memberikan wawasan yang luas kepada kita tentang masalah keagamaan, terutama bagi saya dalam ilmu tafsir. Semoga insya Allah tujuan kita untuk bisa lebih memperdalam Islam dengan cara yang baik dan menerapkan dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari bisa kita pertanggungjawabkan di yaumil akhir.
Bukan saja mencari gelar gitu, karena kan mungkin ada banyak orang yang penting saya dapat gelar, tapi di sini saya merasakan betul-betul peningkatan kemampuan saya di dalam memahami Al-Quran, di dalam memahami Islam, di dalam memahami perbedaan-perbedaan yang ada di tengah kehidupan kita. Ya, ini sangat-sangat saya rekomendasikan buat orang-orang yang menginginkan mencari pemahaman keislaman, pemahaman tentang Al-Quran, ya, untuk mendaftar di Pasca Sarjana PTIG Jakarta. Insya Allah kita mendapatkan keberkahan ilmu karena berjumpa dengan dosen-dosen senior juga dan dosen-dosen yang punya pengalaman di bidangnya. Ya, insya Allah bermanfaat buat kehidupan kita. Ayo daftar di Pasca Sarjana PTIG.
Dengan kompetensi yang dimiliki oleh program Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIG Jakarta, kesempatanmu semakin lebar untuk melanjutkan pendidikan Pasca Sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis Al-Quran terbaik. Sekarang, saatnya kesempatanmu untuk mewujudkan mimpi melanjutkan pendidikan pasca sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis Al-Quran pertama di dunia. Bergabung bersama para qori, ustaz dan ustazah, serta ahli Al-Quran dan tafsir terbaik di Indonesia, lulusan program pasca sarjana Universitas PTIG Jakarta. Apakah kamu bangga jika dapat melanjutkan pendidikan pasca sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis ilmu Al-Quran pertama di dunia? Kampus Islam yang unggul dan modern dalam pengkajian keilmuan berbasis Al-Quran. Memiliki visi menjadi pasca sarjana yang ikonik dalam kajian Al-Quran dan sains untuk Indonesia dan dunia. Serta misi menyelenggarakan pendidikan tingkat pasca sarjana secara profesional yang efektif, efisien, dan relevan dengan nilai-nilai Al-Quran, teknologi, serta keindonesiaan. Meningkatkan reputasi bidang penelitian yang unggul dan orisinal berbasis Al-Quran dan integrasinya dengan sains. Menyelenggarakan pengabdian masyarakat serta menginternalisasikan nilai Al-Quran ke dalam dunia akademik dan kehidupan masyarakat, serta menjalin kerjasama akademik dan non-akademik di tingkat nasional, regional, dan internasional.
Kami ingin kajian-kajian Al-Quran merambah dan menjadi solusi terbaik bagi persoalan-persoalan yang dihadapi oleh umat manusia. Kalau boleh meminjam ungkapan istantikil Quran, buatlah Al-Quran itu berbicara untuk segala hal. Itu sebabnya kami tidak hanya mengkaji ulumul Quran dalam arti sempit, tetapi kami mencoba mendekatkan Al-Quran dengan semua ilmu pengetahuan yang ada.
Al-Quran adalah hudan linnas. Al-Quran membuka dirinya untuk menjadi bahan riset bagi umat manusia, bukan hanya untuk umat Islam. Oleh sebab itu, dosen dan mahasiswa di lingkungan Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIG Jakarta dalam risetnya mengintegrasikan antara ilmu nakliyah atau transcripted science, ilmu akliyah atau rational science, dan ilmu amaliyah atau practical science.
Belajar di Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta menjadikanmu ahli Al-Quran tanpa melupakan semua ilmu pengetahuan yang ada. Metode yang digunakan pun spesifik agar terkonsentrasi pada nilai-nilai Al-Quran.
Ada dua metode yang kami lakukan. Yang pertama, minan nas ilal waqi. Term-term Al-Quran digunakan untuk menyelesaikan problem manusia dan kemanusiaan. Dan yang kedua, minal waqi ilan nas. Persoalan-persoalan yang ada dalam masyarakat didekatkan kepada Al-Quran.
Materi kajian dalam riset dosen dan mahasiswa di Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta mengeksplor isyarat ilmu dan nilai-nilai Al-Quran yang dapat menjadi basic argumen dalam membangun konsep, teori, metode, atau kaidah-kaidah dalam kajian tafsir Al-Quran. Demikian juga dengan ilmu-ilmu lain terkait manajemen pendidikan Islam dan ekonomi syariah. Dengan ini, Al-Quran dapat dikatakan sebagai sholihun di kulli zaman wa makan.
Jelas Al-Quran itu adalah dogma, dia harus diyakini. Tetapi tidak cukup dengan itu. Studi Al-Quran saat ini juga harus bisa menstimulan perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan. Studi Al-Quran juga harus mampu memiliki manfaat bagi masyarakat.
Apakah kamu bangga jika kehidupanmu selalu dipenuhi dengan makna-makna yang terkandung dalam Al-Quran dan bermanfaat bagi masyarakat? Program Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta telah menjadi kampus terbaik di Indonesia dalam mencetak ulama-ulama besar, hafiz, dan juga qori yang kini tersebar di lingkup nasional maupun internasional.
Sekarang ini kita dipercaya oleh pemerintah untuk mencetak pendidikan kader ulama dan pendidikan kader ulama perempuan. Kementerian Agama merekomendasikan agar Istiqlal bekerjasama dengan PTIK mencetak sarjana-sarjana yang mumpuni. Kementerian Perempuan mempercayakan kepada PTIK bekerjasama Istiqlal untuk mencetak sarjana-sarjana perempuan. Satu semester nanti akan kuliah di Mesir, satu semesternya mungkin kuliah juga nanti di Eropa atau di Amerika. Dengan demikian ulama yang kita akan cetak di PTIK ini adalah ulama yang mengglobal, menguasai bahasa Inggris, menguasai bahasa Arab tentunya. Dengan demikian mampu mensuplai ulama yang dibutuhkan di situasi bumi.
Memang dari dulu kita tahu PTIK dan lulusan-lulusannya. Karena biasanya kalau kita ceramah gitu, kalau kita ketemu di suatu tempat, pasti imamnya tuh alumni PTIK. Dan kita kenal lah lulusan-lulusannya itu adalah mereka-mereka yang sudah melanglang buana kalau di urusan Quran, baik MTQ-nya, syarhil Qurannya, ya bahkan khotnya juga. Jadi kita sudah mengenal sebetulnya PTIK sebelum saya masuk pasca di PTIK.
Dengan berbagai program yang ada, Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta berkomitmen untuk menghasilkan lulusan yang berilmu amaliyah, beramal ilmiah, berakhlakul karimah, yang dapat diterima oleh masyarakat secara luas.
PTIK dari dulu fokus tentang ilmu Al-Quranan, tentang segala macam yang mempelajari Al-Quran. Saya juga sangat menghargai dan salut kepada dosen-dosen yang memberikan perhatian kepada kami. Ada yang baru belajar Al-Quran, ada yang mungkin sudah cukup tinggi, dan itu kemudian dihubungkan oleh dosen kita dengan diskusi yang sangat menarik. Jadi secara intellectual exercise, menurut saya kuliah di PTIK itu sangat menyenangkan, memuaskan, dan ketika lulus saya menemukan bahwa kembali belajar Al-Quran sekarang itu seru.
Kalau dari sudut pandang masyarakat, PTIK itu sudah cukup terkenal ya. Omongan dari masyarakat mengenal alumni PTIK itu sangat-sangat bermanfaat dari segi ilmu keagamaan, kemudian imam masjid, MTQ juga mereka yang mumpuni.
Satu kebahagiaan yang luar biasa, saya menjadi bagian daripada perguruan tinggi ilmu Al-Quran, mulai dari S1 kemudian lanjut ke pasca sarjana PTIK. Kalau ditanya alasannya kenapa mengambil pasca sarjana PTIK, ya karena S1-nya di PTIK. Kalau di PTIK S1 saja sudah merasakan manfaat yang luar biasa, ilmu-ilmu yang diberikan, dan juga kebersamaan, kekeluargaan Qur'ani yang kami rasakan, apalagi kalau kita sudah mencapai jenjang pasca sarjana. Dan juga yang kedua alasannya ketika melihat motivasi-motivasi daripada lulusan-lulusan daripada pasca sarjana PTIK. Jadi Masya Allah Tabarakallah, alasan utama karena pengen dekat dengan Al-Quran. Begitu mungkin karena yang mendekat dengan Al-Quran yang kami rasakan yang ada di Indonesia, yang paling dekat ya di PTIK ini.
Maksimalkan potensi dirimu di Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta melalui 3 pilihan di dalam program Magister, yaitu S2 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, S2 Ekonomi Syariah, S2 Manajemen Pendidikan Islam, dan 2 program studi pilihan di dalam program doktor, yaitu S3 Manajemen Pendidikan Islam dan S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir. Semua mahasiswa yang terdapat pada seluruh program studi mendapatkan sertifikat tahsin Al-Quran dari Lembaga Tahfiz dan Tilawah Al-Quran sebagai jaminan mutu kualitas lulusan Pascasarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta. Dalam menjalankan kelancaran pendidikan, Pascasarjana Institut PTIK Jakarta dikepalai oleh Direktur Pascasarjana yang bertanggung jawab kepada Rektor Universitas PTIK Jakarta, serta dibantu oleh 16 dosen Magister Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, 5 dosen Magister Ekonomi Syariah, 13 dosen Magister Manajemen Pendidikan Islam, 5 dosen Doktor Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir, dan 5 dosen Doktor Manajemen Pendidikan Islam.
Di program Magister Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir itu ada 3 peminatan namanya. Ada ilmu Al-Quran, ada ilmu tafsir, dan satu adalah tafsir Nusantara. Nah, ini sesuatu yang menarik sesungguhnya ketika kita menawarkan tafsir Nusantara, walaupun seluruhnya bernuansa tafsir Nusantara, karena bagaimanapun kita hidup di Nusantara. Tetapi peminatan ini menjadi penting agar kajian Al-Quran di Indonesia itu tidak stagnan. Kenapa itu penting? Ya karena di sana kita akan melihat bagaimana dunia nasional dan juga internasional mengkaji Al-Quran. Bagaimana non-muslim dan muslim mengkaji Al-Quran. Di sana dielaborasi tentang hal itu bagi mereka yang memilih peminatan Al-Quran.
Program Magister Ekonomi Syariah Universitas PTIK Jakarta memiliki visi dan misi menjadi program studi yang unggul dan kompetitif di bidang ekonomi berbasis Al-Quran, keindonesiaan, dan keislaman. Kami memiliki 3 peminatan, yaitu peminatan bisnis syariah, peminatan manajemen syariah, dan peminatan keuangan syariah. Dengan menjadi mahasiswa di program studi Magister Universitas PTIK Jakarta, setelah lulus perkuliahan ini, Anda akan mendapatkan 2 gelar sekaligus. Yang pertama adalah Magister Ekonomi dari Universitas PTIK Jakarta dan gelar profesi Certified Islamic Money Manager hasil kerjasama dengan IARFC Ohio USA, atau gelar RIFA Registered Islamic Financial Associate dari hasil kerjasama IARFC USA. Juga ada beberapa gelar lainnya hasil kerjasama dari INSIF University Malaysia.
Universitas PTIK Jakarta Magister manajemennya memiliki peminatan 1, manajemen pendidikan Islam anak usia dini. Yang kedua, Universitas PTIK Jakarta juga memiliki Magister Manajemen Pendidikan Dasar dan Menengah Islam. Kemudian kami juga memiliki peminatan namanya Manajemen Pendidikan Tinggi Islam. Yang keempat, ada juga namanya Manajemen Pendidikan Al-Quran. Sekarang kan sedang marak nih. Jadi ada, kalau dulu ada TPQ, sekarang ada rumah-rumah tahfidz, pesantren-pesantren Quran. Apakah lembaga-lembaga ini sudah di-manage dengan manajemen modern? Mungkin sebagian sudah iya, tapi sebagian yang lain masih membutuhkan manajemen modern, dan itu perlu ilmunya.
Visi yang dimiliki oleh S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIK Jakarta adalah menjadi program studi yang unggul, ikonik, dan progresif yang mengintegrasikan antara ilmu-ilmu keislaman, saintek, dan juga keindonesiaan. Visi tersebut dilaksanakan dengan 4 misi sebagai berikut. Yang pertama, menjalankan pendidikan tinggi dengan mengintegrasikan antara keilmuan, saintek, dan juga nilai-nilai keindonesiaan yang berbasis Al-Quran sebagai pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, wa qur rabbi zidni ilma. Yang kedua, menyelenggarakan penelitian dan pengabdian masyarakat yang progresif sesuai dengan kebutuhan masyarakat baik nasional maupun global sebagai pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, wa qul i'malu fasayarallahu amalakum wa rasuluhu wal mu'minun. Yang ketiga,
menyelenggarakan kerjasama baik pada tingkat nasional maupun internasional yang merupakan pengamalan dari firman Allah Subhanahu wa taala, wa ta'awanu 'alal birri wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu 'alal ismi wal 'udwan. Dan yang keempat adalah menyelenggarakan tata kelola yang baik, yang ramah mahasiswa dan bermutu tinggi, sehingga menjadi salah satu ikon yang terdapat di S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIG Jakarta. Dengan pelaksanaan 4 misi tersebut, diharapkan S3 Ilmu Al-Quran dan Tafsir Universitas PTIG Jakarta telah mencerminkan pengamalan dari kaidah al-muhafadzatu 'alal qadimi sholih wal akhdhu 'alal jadidil aslah, yaitu mengambil dan mengintegrasikan turos ataupun peninggalan dari ulama-ulama terdahulu dan menggabungkannya dengan yang terbaru pada saat ini.
Program Studi Doktor Manajemen Pendidikan Islam Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIG Jakarta adalah program studi yang paling baru yang berada di pasca sarjana. Program studi ini kemudian memiliki keunikan dan keunggulan, yaitu pada manajemen inovasi pendidikan Islam. Nah, program studi ini difokuskan pada prinsip-prinsip manajemen, yaitu perencanaan, pengarahan, pengelolaan, penyusunan portofolio sampai dengan pembiayaan, yang dihubungkan dengan seluruh aspek-aspek yang terkait dengan pendidikan seperti input, proses, dan output pendidikan. Profil lulusan yang akan dilahirkan dari program studi doktor manajemen pendidikan Islam itu adalah pertama akademisi, yang kedua akan melahirkan peneliti, yang ketiga akan melahirkan konsultan pendidikan, dan yang keempat itu akan melahirkan penyelia. Dengan demikian, program studi doktor manajemen pendidikan Islam akan menjadi rujukan program studi yang memfokuskan kajiannya pada inovasi-inovasi pendidikan, khususnya inovasi pendidikan Islam yang ada di Indonesia bahkan dunia.
Pimpinan lembaga dan para dosen mendorong seluruh mahasiswanya untuk mampu bersaing di lingkup nasional dan internasional dengan mengadakan kerjasama oleh banyak lembaga dan instansi di lingkup nasional dan internasional. Kerjasama ini dilakukan selain untuk menjaga kualitas Universitas PTIG Jakarta, juga meningkatkan posisi PTIG Jakarta di lingkup nasional maupun internasional sehingga mampu bersaing dengan berbagai universitas unggulan di dunia.
Program S2 dan S3 PTIG, kami bersyukur ya karena rupanya peminatnya jauh lebih besar. Dan apa yang ada di PTIG menurut mereka, menurut para mahasiswa, pertama itu pemahaman teoritisnya sangat kuat tentang Al-Quran, karena memang diasuh oleh orang-orang yang capable, ya, orang-orang yang sudah lama bergelut sebagai ahli Al-Quran.
Kebutuhan akan Al-Quran bagi manusia sebenarnya sama dengan kebutuhan akan oksigen bagi badan kita. Namun terkadang manusia tidak memahaminya. Maka bagi komunitas umat Islam, kebutuhan akan Al-Quran bukanlah pilihan, tapi itu kepastian. Maka dari pemikiran itulah peluang bagi para sarjana atau alumni studi Al-Quran khusus di PTIG pasti akan terus terbuka lebar. Dan yang kita harus lakukan hanyalah melayakkan diri untuk dapat menangkap peluang.
Saya mengajak pada saudara-saudaraku sama umat muslim, kalau kita ingin memperdalam ilmu keagamaan pasti banyak pilihannya. Nah, kalau saya memilih PTIG, kenapa? Karena saya melihat di dalamnya banyak para cendekiawan, guru-guru yang bisa memberikan wawasan yang luas kepada kita tentang masalah keagamaan, terutama bagi saya dalam ilmu tafsir. Semoga insya Allah tujuan kita untuk bisa lebih memperdalam Islam dengan cara yang baik dan menerapkan dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari bisa kita pertanggungjawabkan di dunia lahir.
Bukan saja mencari gelar gitu, karena kan mungkin ada banyak orang yang penting saya dapat gelar, tapi di sini saya merasakan betul-betul peningkatan kemampuan saya di dalam memahami Al-Quran, di dalam memahami Islam, di dalam memahami perbedaan-perbedaan yang ada di tengah kehidupan kita. Ya, ini sangat-sangat saya rekomendasikan buat orang-orang yang menginginkan mencari pemahaman keislaman, pemahaman tentang Al-Quran untuk mendaftar di pasca sarjana PTIG Jakarta. Insya Allah kita mendapatkan keberkahan ilmu karena berjumpa dengan dosen-dosen senior juga dan dosen-dosen yang punya pengalaman di bidangnya. Insya Allah bermanfaat buat kehidupan kita. Ayo daftar di pasca sarjana PTIG.
Dengan kompetensi yang dimiliki oleh program Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta, kesempatanmu semakin lebar untuk melanjutkan pendidikan pasca sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis Al-Quran terbaik. Sekarang, saatnya kesempatanmu untuk mewujudkan mimpi melanjutkan pendidikan pasca sarjana di perguruan tinggi berbasis Al-Quran pertama di dunia. Bergabung bersama para qori, ustaz dan ustazah, serta ahli Al-Quran dan tafsir terbaik di Indonesia, lulusan program Pasca Sarjana Universitas PTIK Jakarta.
pengantennya akan tiba dalam 30 menit. Jadi snack yang belum habis dihabiskan dulu. Kalau udah habis bisa minta ke depan, mungkin masih. Biasanya dapat snack itu kalau pesawat terlambat 3 jam biasanya. Ini baru setengah jam, belum wajib memberi snack. Selamat datang Profesor Dr. David Grafton. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Mari kita mulai acara ini dengan bersama membaca Al-Basmalah. Selanjutnya kami persilahkan Ustaz Ade Putra Mas Riandai Sage untuk membacakan beberapa ayat suci Al-Quran. Silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لتجدن أشد الناس عداوة للذين آمنوا اليهود والذين أشركوا ولتجدن أقربهم مودة للذين آمنوا الذين قالوا إنا نصارى ذلك بأن منهم قسيسين ورهبانا وأنهم لا يستكبرون ذلك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا صدق الله العظيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Selanjutnya kami persilakan Bapak Dr. Imam Ad-Daruqutni, Wakil Rektor 1 Universitas PTIG Jakarta untuk menyampaikan sambutan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ba'du. To begin with, I'd like to, on behalf of the University of the University, welcome our guest, our respectable guest speaker, the Reverend Dr. David D. Grafton, PhD, Professor of Islamic Studies and Christian Muslim Relations, Director of the Duncan Black McDonald Center. Welcome to the day. And there's Rick. No, Mr. Duncan, thank you. And on behalf of the PTIG, I'd like to avail myself of this great moment and opportunity to say a little bit that this is the very delighted meeting because of your presence here. The long journey, of course, and here we are coming from the graduate school and postgraduate program, the PhD program, and also the master program for the university, and many others follow through the Zoom. I think this is the very simple class, moderate class, and together with us is also Professor Jarish Uday, the director of the postgraduate and the graduate school, and the Professor Madi many others. Well, of course, I know that all the audience here will not listen too long to what I would like to say here, since all of you, the audience, would like to listen and pay attention to what you're going to say here. Of course, you are the very most awaited person to say here. So again, that of course, this is very rare. Distinguished guest speaker from America. Some of American people come here, of course, and some says, or many say even, that those who come and sit here also are undoubtedly the great person. Thank you very much, and I would like to invite all of the attendants, students, to seriously pay attention to the very hopeful, inspiring speech from Dr. David de Grafton, and also maybe accompanied by the distinguished wife, Carla. Thank you, Ms. Carla. Mrs. Carla. And without much ado, I would like to give this time to moderator Pak Ali Tantowi, and at the end, I would like to say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kita beralih ke acara utama kita pada hari ini. Sebelumnya, kami mengucapkan selamat datang Dr. David de Grafton dan Ibunda Dr. Carla. Yes. Dan rombongan yang lainnya ada Pak Nata Amana Sutisna dan kawan-kawan. Terima kasih telah berkunjung ke PTIG. Selanjutnya untuk acara diskusi dan public lecture, kami persilakan Pak Ali Tantowi MA. Beliau adalah mahasiswa doktoral di Universitas PTIG Jakarta. Kami persilakan.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Are you still energized to listen to the lecture? Alhamdulillah. Before I start, I would like to say thanks to the organizing committee to allow me to become the moderator for this lecture, and distinguished rector of PTIQ, Professor Nasrul Umar, and the vice rectors, professors, head of the postgraduate programs, students, lecturers, and academic staff. Before I start, I would like to introduce myself. As Pak Muid said, that I am a student here. I am still a student in postgraduate program. I am also a lecturer for religious study at the Indonesia International Institute for Life Science. So I have a short story, Professor Grafton. In 2008, I got a scholarship to study in the Netherlands, to study Islam, not in theological perspective, but in anthropology, sociology, and history. When my father knew that I got a scholarship, my father didn't allow me to go. Why? Because he was so afraid, he was so worried, maybe I will change my religion, I will convert it to Christianity. But then, because of the power of my mother, my mother persuaded my father to allow me to go, and thanks God, I got a scholarship and then studied in the Netherlands. Alhamdulillah, I'm still a Muslim, not a Christian. Okay, the audience. So I think it is related with the topic today, that understanding about the history of Christian and Muslim relationship is very important, I think, to discuss, because if my father know much about this history, maybe he would not give negative stance toward my decision to go to the Netherlands. Dear audience, before we start, I would like to introduce you to our distinguished speaker. The Reverend Dr. David Grafton is a professor of Islamic Studies and Christian-Muslim Relations at the Duncan MacDonald Center for the Study of Islam and Christian-Muslim Relations at Harvard International University. The Duncan MacDonald Center is the oldest institution of its kind in the United States and dedicated to the academic study of Islam and interfaith relations. Professor Grafton holds a PhD in Islamic Studies from the University of Birmingham, England, and a master's degree from Luther Seminary, St. Paul, in Minnesota, and also a bachelor degree in Capital University, Columbus, Ohio. Prior to his appointment at Harvard International University, Dr. Grafton served as the Associate Professor of Islamic Studies and Christian-Muslim Relations at Lutheran Theological Seminary at Philadelphia, and also the Director of Graduate Studies in 2008 until 2016. He is also the Coordinator of Graduate Studies and Director of Center for Middle East Christianity and Evangelical Theological Seminary in Cairo, and also the Adjunct Lecturer in Islamic Studies and the Dar Kombuni Institute for Arabic and Islamic Studies, Cairo, Egypt, from 2000 until 2008. So I truly believe that Professor Dr. David Grafton is the ideal scholar for PTIQ University to invite for a discussion on the history of Christian-Muslim relation. Why? Beside academic activities, because he is very active, he is a pastor, and he frequently engage with community groups, congregation, mosque, Islamic center on topic related to interfaith dialogue on Islam, Christian and Muslim relation. So, yes, let me welcome Professor David Grafton to speak.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for the invitation to come speak at this esteemed university that I have come to know very well. I'm especially delighted to see Professor Dowers here, whom I met several years ago in America, 2 years ago. So it's wonderful that I can come and see you here in Indonesia. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to come. I want to give a special greeting to those students whom I see who were with us at Hartford this last year. It's wonderful to see you again, and it's wonderful to be here in your home to be a guest. So thank you. No translation. All right. So I asked how much time we have because in addition to being a professor, I am also a pastor and a preacher. And if you allow a preacher to speak, you never know when they will stop. So I want to make sure that I give some time. As a teacher, it's very important to me that I not only speak, but that I listen and that I engage students with questions and answers. So if it's possible, I very much would like to have time for questions from students so that we can engage in learning, if that's okay, after. Okay, thank you. Now the topic for today, as I see it, is the history of Christian-Muslim relations. I'm sorry, but I don't think we want to hear 1,400 years of relations between Christians and Muslims. We may be here beyond Ramadan. So I want to focus on our experience of Christian-Muslim relations and the study of Islam at Hartford International University. over 180 years of experience that we've had in the study of Islam and Christian-Muslim relations. That will be my focus for today. And what I have learned about that from my students. Hartford Seminary was established in 1834. It is now Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. And if I see this card here, I see that PTIQ has also gone from being an institute to being a university. So we share the same history in becoming something bigger. So congratulations. At Hartford International University, we have learned that it is important not only to study about or to speak about people of other religious traditions, but to speak with and to learn with people of other religious traditions. And we have found, perhaps like your father's worry, that by going and learning something new in a different place, you might be tempted. We have found that in such occasions of learning together, it actually makes us better believers. It grounds us in our own tradition. It helps us to think more clearly about what it is we have been taught and what it is that we actually believe, because we are faced with questions from those who raise questions for us that we may not have ever thought about before. And these are good things to learn. We have learned at Hartford International University that it is important to learn with others, to develop a sense of empathy and respect and love for other people from other traditions whom God has created. We are all creatures of God. We are all humans together on this planet. And if it is one thing that we are learning now, is the importance of how critical it is in this planet, with our environment as fragile as it is, to work together as human beings for the benefit of all, and to take care of this particular planet that we have been given. I have been guided by several passages or ayat in my understanding of the work that we do, particularly among Christians and Muslims. And the first comes from Surah Al-Hujurat. O humanity, we have created you male and female, and have made you nations and tribes, that ye may know one another. I'm sure you can recite that. So that we might know one another. This is God's design for us. Likewise, in the Christian New Testament, in the Gospel of Matthew, we hear this story where the Pharisees come to Jesus, Isa, and say, "Teacher, Which commandment is the greatest in the law? Jesus said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind." This is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We love God and we love our neighbors, who are those humans that are around us, who are together with us. And so it is important for us in this world where we are from different tribes and nations, where we have been reared in our faith, brought up in our faith, taught our faith, practice our faith, that we would also be mindful of those from other communities. In this case, Christians and Muslims, because we share a great tradition together. We have a long history together. Some of it is good, and some of it is not so good. We have the opportunity, each of us, to live out God's calling to know one another better. To know one another better. And how will we know one another better if we do not meet together and listen to one another? Listen to one another. It is easy to talk. It is easy to lecture. It is easy to preach. Sometimes it is hard to listen. To listen to others, what they have to say, what they feel, and how they understand God. That is our job when we come together at Hartford International University. And when we listen to others, it prompts us, if we are really listening, to think more clearly about what we are saying, about how we are being heard, and how we might be better at speaking clearly. Because quite often, we misunderstand one another. We misinterpret one another because we may not be listening. That is a key skill. I want to say a few words about how at Hartford we have had a long history, and here I'm talking as a Christian, of beginning to listen to Muslims about what Muslims think, say, and believe. So Hartford Seminary was created in 1834 as a Christian seminary, training men for ministry in the Christian church in North America. The Protestant church in North America. And over time, there were many Christians from all around the world that came to Hartford Seminary. Now, Hartford is a very small city. It's about 250,000 people. Jakarta is what? How many people in Jakarta? 10 million, right? Jakarta is about 10 million. Hartford is about 250,000 people. It's a village. It's about halfway between Boston and New York, almost in the middle. not a very big city in the United States. But for many years, Christians from all around the world started coming to Hartford. Some of them from Indonesia or from India, even some from China. And many of them became missionaries. They became missionaries. In 1894, Hartford Seminary hired a professor of Hebrew and Arabic studies, and his name was Duncan Black MacDonald. He was from Scotland, and he was a Scottish Presbyterian minister. But he had studied Islam in Edinburgh and in London. When he came to the United States, he felt it was very important for those Christians who were going to learn about Islam, that they learn about Islam as Muslims believed, as Muslims thought, as Muslims practiced their religion, and not as Christians thought they did. Why? Because at the time, there were no Muslims in Hartford at the seminary. There were just Christians. And the Christians were talking about Islam. They were talking about Muslims. And Duncan Black MacDonald said, if we really want to know about Islam, we need to find out what Muslims think about Islam. Right? Isn't that fair? Doesn't that make sense? Otherwise, we might simply be thinking whatever we want about Muslims. So Duncan Black MacDonald began to talk about the importance of what it meant to understand Islam from within, as Muslims understood it and practiced and believed it. And so he went on a sabbatical in 1908 to Cairo and Damascus and Jerusalem, and there he met with Muslims. He already knew how to speak Arabic. He had been a professor of Arabic, but he wanted to speak with Muslims. And not just the Grand Imam, not just the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, but he wanted to meet with Muslims on the street in Cairo. And so he began walking the streets of Cairo and speaking with Muslims there and listening to them, listening to what they believe. He brought that back with him to Hartford, and he began to instill this idea of learning about and with. Learning about and with. He began to teach this to his students, and then the followers of Duncan Black MacDonald, the teachers at Hartford Seminary, began to say, we need to invite Muslims to begin teaching here. If we want to listen, let's invite Muslim faculty members. And so, in 1991, Hartford Seminary was the first Christian seminary in North America to hire a full-time Muslim faculty member. That Muslim faculty member Ibrahim Abu Rabia, brought with him students. And soon we hired another Muslim faculty member, Ingrid Matson, a female scholar, Muslima. More students. And soon, especially after September 11th, 2001, there were many Christians in North America who wanted to know about Islam. What happened? Why did this happen? Why do Muslims do these things? Many of them came to Hartford Seminary not only to learn about Islam, but to learn with Muslim professors and with Muslim students. So we had the opportunity to begin teaching and learning together in the same classroom, Muslims and Christians together. Because of this history, this morning I got up at 4:45 in the morning. It wasn't for Fajr, but I got up to teach a class at Hartford that began at 5 in the morning. It was on Zoom. It was in the dark. Fellow was sleeping. But I was teaching a course with my colleague, Professor Hossein Kamali, a Muslim, an American Muslim of Iranian descent, and a Shia. The two of us are co-teaching this class together. And in the class, there are Christians and Muslims and Jews and even a Mormon, people of many different religious traditions. And there together we are reading a book and we are discussing the book together. What does it mean to believe in God? Learning about and with one another. To do this takes practice. It takes practice. And it takes a number of skills. And these skills are not only about being clear about your own faith or belief. It's not only about dawah or preaching, but it's about listening. Honestly listening. And so to do that, you need to develop skills of what I call sympathetic and empathetic critique. Sympathetic and empathetic critique. What do I mean by this? Sympathy is something that we might have for someone else. We might have sympathy for someone in how they feel, or how we think they feel, or how we believe they might understand something. So we might have a sympathetic critique of their particular tradition. But in order to have a sympathetic critique of someone else's tradition, we must also have an empathetic critique of our own tradition. empathy is something that we feel or something that is inside of us about our own views. We can only engage in helpful learning together if we have both sympathy and empathy together. Sympathetic critique for those who are not from our tradition, and empathetic critique of our own tradition. Because when we engage in both, we learn more about our own tradition. Because those from outside our tradition begin to ask us questions that perhaps we were never asked before, or questions that we may not have been asked in the same way. They provide us opportunities to hear things differently and to think about that. It might be difficult at first. It might be challenging. But as a professor, as a scholar, I think that is a good thing, because it helps us to struggle and strive to become better. Holding these together, sympathy and empathy, is much better than antipathy or being apathetic. What do I mean by apathetic? Meaning we don't care what the other thinks. We don't care what the other has to say. By being apathetic, we don't honor the other person whom God has created, whom God has brought to us. I have found over the years that as a Christian, God continually brings to me Muslims. God continually puts me in places where there are Muslims. You can thank God for that, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why. But here I am. I think it has made me a better Christian. And I hope in my teaching and in my articulation and in my listening, it makes my students better Muslims or better Christians or better Jews or better Buddhists. Because in the end, only God knows, right? Allahu A'lam, right? Only God knows. And so while we're on this earth, why not use the gifts that God has given us to engage with others sympathetically and empathetically? If we want to be better believers, why not engage those who are different from us, in this case, Christians and Muslims, so that we might learn from one another, so that we might know one another better, and that we might love our neighbors as we do this. I have spent my career as a pastor and as a professor listening to Muslims. God willing, I'll spend a few more years doing that. And so now I would like to listen to you. I would like to hear from you. What are your questions that you have for me, that we might all learn together and know one another better? Ameen.
Thank you very much, Professor David Grafton. So, what I learned from your lecture that studying other religion, Christian or Muslim, we have to put it more personal, more emotional, and more social instead of formal, more procedural, and maybe more abstract. Now, Professor invite us to ask some question, or maybe you can share your experience, so we can learn together. Okay? Please, if you have some question, feel free to ask. We start one by one, Professor? One by one or one by one? Okay, please. Ada mic-nya? Ada mic-nya?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Professor Grafton. My name is Ilham Surya. I will start my question by stating the fact that we are as Muslim sometimes attributed or labeled as with negative image, such as terrorists or whatever, especially after 9/11 tragedy had happened. The first question is, what is the initial reaction of Harvard Cemetery with that tragedy, and what's your active contribution in spreading so-called our Muslim apology the word about that tragedy? And the second one is about when we are surfing our social media today, we still observe that so many Islamophobe or Christianophobe issue in that social media. The question is, what that is we are failing to do, so this issue is still relevant until today. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll answer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. It's a very good question. So after 9/11, Hartford Seminary then was very active in going out to speak, not just in classrooms, but at churches, community centers, and schools. There were many, many requests from the public for professors at Hartford Seminary to come speak, because Hartford had a good reputation, going all the way back down to Duncan Black MacDonald, about learning about Islam. So Hartford had a very good reputation. I have found that the best way to combat Islamophobia or any phobia is to invite people to meet one another. So I often, when congregations, when churches or schools or community centers invite me, they invite me to come and talk about Islam. I think they think I'm safe because I'm Christian and I can tell them, right, the truth, right? So I always say, I can come and speak with you, but the point will be for you to invite Muslims to come and speak for themselves. And here it gets to your point that's very, very important, to make it personal. So I often bring students with me, or I invite members from a local masjid or community to come and speak about their own beliefs. And I usually find, or I have found in America, that people who hold prejudice views, Islamophobic views,
when they actually meet someone, a real person, a real Muslim, a father or mother, a student, a doctor or lawyer, a taxi driver, that they begin to see things differently because they see a human being in front of them. Right? Now, this is important. I think this is a lesson that might be learned here. One of the reasons why in September, before September 11th, why there was so much negativity, well, there's many reasons, but a primary one was because Muslims in the United States are numerically in the minority. Numerically in the minority. There are maybe 8 million Muslims in the United States out of 350 million people. So they are in the minority religiously, which makes it easy for us as Christians to not think about Muslims until we want to, until we say, oh, let's think about Muslims. Okay? It's important as a majority to remember our responsibility in creating space for minority community. So you have the opposite experience here. You are in the majority as Muslims, right? There are more Muslims in Indonesia than any other religious tradition. So the same can be said. How will you create space for those who look badly on minority community? It can be the same thing, right? So God willing, we'll never have another 9/11. But in my experience, the only way to respond to that is to invite people to meet one another. You can learn about Islam 101. You can learn about the ibadat and the iman and all that. You can read a book on that. But it's in listening to Muslims talk about what that means. What does it mean to get up for Fajr prayer? That's what's important.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. This second question. Dr. Muid.
Selamat siang, Prof. David Grafton. Saya lama tidak berbahasa Inggris, but I want to try it now. I want to share my experience. I have a family who convert to Christian, and it makes his mother very sad. And I remember, I'm an administrator of a big mosque in Jakarta, Masjid Atin. You? Yes, 6 years ago, and we convert every week Christian to Muslim, and we celebrate it. We say Allahu Akbar. But when I see my mother, about my friend's mother, so sad when his son convert to Christian, I saya mengubah perasaan. I change my mind. I change my feeling. I promise from right now that I won't celebrate it again, because I can see the mother of the Christian, when their son convert to Islam, they feel sad. How can I celebrate the sadness of their mothers? How can I do that? So I want to ask you now, as a preacher, pendeta, preacher, pastor,
Is it right to not celebrate it? If someone convert to Islam, or other side, convert to, is it right to not celebrate as Muslim if someone convert to Islam? Sorry. It's the first time to talk to native speaker in English. Hard to me.
Give applause.
I get sweating.
Yeah. 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 I'm sorry I can't respond in Bahasa. So, thank you.
But if you want to use Arabic, it's okay.
Inshallah. So, very good question. Very good question. So, when I began my PhD at the University of Birmingham in England, at the Center for the Study of Islam and Christian-Muslim Relations, the center where I was studying was made up of 50% Muslim faculty and 50% Christian faculty, 50% Muslim students and 50% Christian students on purpose. I was the only American, thank God. There, for many of us, it was the first time that they sat down to listen to someone from the other tradition. It was there that I met Amjad. Amjad was from Jordan, and he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay? And after maybe 2 weeks of pleasantries, having tea, he said to me, David, you're the first priest I have ever met. I don't understand, but I want you to become a Muslim. And I said, Amjad, you're the first member of the Muslim Brotherhood I've met. I don't understand you. I want you to become a Christian. We shook hands, and we had a wonderful experience together, right? We had a wonderful experience together. Why? Because we acknowledged that we believe something. We believe in our faith. We believe in Allah. We believe in Jesus. We differ in that, but we acknowledged it. And so we had a wonderful relationship in talking together. It's in that personal relationship with someone else where if God leads that person to another faith, can you look that person in the eye and say, is this what you believe? And if they say yes with all my heart and mind and soul, Allahu Alam, right? If that mother and that son could look each other in the eye and say, this is what I believe. I don't understand, but I love you. Right? That's different than everyone standing in the masjid saying, Allahu Akbar. Right? Those people who don't know that person. That's different. So again, it comes down to the personhood. If there are members of my church who are married to Muslims who convert to Islam, and I can look them in the eye and say, is this what you believe with your whole heart? Yes, I do. Allah. And the same the other way around. But we leave it to God. We leave it to God. People convert, and we hope people will convert. But we do that with ourselves in relationship. We don't just say, let's baptize them all, right? Or let's them all take Shahada. I have many students who say to me, Professor Grafton, when will you take Shahada? You're close. You're very close. I say, I don't know. But I believe as a Christian, right? So I think only God knows. But what's important, and I thank you for your care for that person, it's important for those people that they together accept one another. And then we turn it to God. Only God knows, right? I don't know if that helps, but this is my view.
Thank you, Professor. Maybe, yeah, Professor Made.
Assalamualaikum, Mr. Professor and Mama Carla. I'm so sorry because my English is bad, is not good. But as my point of view, the plurality that exists on the world is because of the plurality of the relation of the God. And then the plurality of the relation of the God is because of the plurality of the aim and purpose of God. The plurality of the aim of the purpose of the God is because of the plurality of the time. And then the plurality of the time is because of the plurality of the movement of the celestial. And then the plurality of the celestial, it is because, maybe, as my point of view, it is because of the difference of the appearances of the God. That's God, one, our God. Maybe we can say Allah, maybe other people we can say whatever he's saying. But that's of your description in the Harvard University, situation in the Harvard University, it is like what Jerry Phillips said by to pass pluralism. And then I have to be Saleh as a Muslim, then you have to be Saleh as a Christian. So my question is, how to make it some the curriculum situation that as a Muslim, he or she has to be Saleh as a Muslim, and then he or he has to be Saleh as a Christian or Jews. I mean, I just want to how the curriculum make it the harmony in the global citizenship in the Harvard University. That's the first question. And then the second question is, when we're talking about Muslim, we are not talking about Muslim in the Middle East. We're not talking about Muslim in the Indonesia. We're not talking about Muslim in the Pakistan or other Muslim countries. When we are talking about Muslim, we have to talking about all of the Muslim in the world. All of Muslim in the world, and then how to, how to make some relation, cooperation between other Muslim. You know that other Muslim have stratification thought. Any Sunni, any Shia, or other believer of the Muslim. How to make it the cooperation between them, and how you, as a pastor, as a professor in the Harvard University, make it them harmony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I apologize. My Bahasa, I have no Bahasa. I can't speak. I want to ask, are you a professor of philosophy? You sound like it. Yeah, Islamic education. So, again, in our curriculum, all students learn together, which means that whenever there is a lecture or a reading, some students will have different questions than other students. And it's important that we take time to define terms, to define ideas, and to define the way that we as persons understand them. So, for example, here's a really good example. We'll be reading along in Surah Maryam. Jesus was given the Injil. Isa given the Injil, the Gospel. Okay? So I will write on the board, Gospel. I will say I will ask a Muslim student, what do you mean by Gospel? Injil, what does it mean to you? The Muslim student will then tell us about the Injil. It's the revelation given to Prophet Isa by the angel Gabriel. It's the words of God given to the prophet, the revelation. So then I will turn to a Christian student. I say, what does the word gospel mean to you? They will say, oh, it's the story about the life of Jesus. It means something totally different. Right? It means something totally different. It could also mean the book of the story, the Gospels that were written about the life of Jesus, the Sirah of Jesus. Right? That's not what Surah Maryam says, right? So we have to take time to say, what do you mean? What are you saying by this? The point of the curriculum is we have different views, certainly about Jesus, the prophet Isa, right? But the point of the curriculum is to be clearer in what we mean, to be clearer in our differences. Are we actually defining the term in the same way or not? Usually we're not. Usually we're talking like this. So the curriculum, what's important is to learn how the other is hearing about this, right? Here's another example. When I have Muslim students read the Gospel of Mark, which is in the New Testament, which Christians consider the first book of the New Testament, second book of the New Testament, the earliest gospel written. For us, it is revelation. It is revelation. When a Muslim reads it, I often find they say, this is the Qasas al-Anbiya. This is a story of a prophet. This is interesting, but it's not revelation. It's not wahi. But for us it is. How could that be? Right? So it prompts us to think more clearly about the differences that we have to learn more about what we actually mean. Right? Students spend a lot of time trying to understand the same terms that mean different things. Right? Sometimes you'll say, I don't agree that that's revelation. That can't be revelation because it's not God speaking. Okay. But Christians don't see revelation in the same way. They have a different definition. If you can come to understand that, you will know something. You still disagree, but at least you disagree honestly. Right? Otherwise, you just not listen.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think there are still many questions, but unfortunately, time is very limited. I think, Professor, maybe you still have some remarks, final remarks, before we end our lecture today.
Thank you very much. So, your university, are you all in Tafsir? Okay, you're all in Tafsir. So, in my country, in my world, among Christians, we have many seminaries where Christians are learning about Jesus in the New Testament and Christian theology, right? And they're all learning together. They study very hard. Just like you study very hard, right? Okay, you study very hard. You're all learning together tafsir. the methods of tafsir, right? That's really difficult. That's really hard. It's challenging. There are many Christian seminaries where Christians are learning about the New Testament, and they're studying very hard, right? But you are all learning in different rooms, right? You're in different rooms. I would challenge you sometime in your life, somehow figure out how to get into the other room. Get into the other room and listen to what is going on. It's exciting for me as a Christian professor when I have Muslim students who come into the classroom and want to learn about. Maybe their fathers are worried about them, but they're coming in because they're curious. They're curious. They want to know more. Sorry? Yeah. Sometime in your life, figure out how you can get into the other room and listen. It's not easy. It takes time. You have to know someone. You have to be let into the room. And you have to listen. So I think if we can learn that skill, if we can figure out how to get into the other room and hear what they're doing, listen to how hard they're working, how much studying they're doing, and how much energy they're struggling with, I think that will help us all be better, right?
Thank you very much again. Big applause for Professor David Grafton for amazing lecture. I hope everyone can get a lot of knowledge from his lecture. And then my final word is always listening, always understanding. So thank you very much, audience, for today. See you in the next event. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes.
Let me take a photo together.
One breakout from our president. The orthopedic doctor. Yeah. He got left the ankle.
Terima kasih kawan-kawan ya sudah hadir. Makan siangnya ada di warung ya. Silakan.